Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So in this video I'm going to show you how to make this fabric organizer. This is definitely a fitting video for the beginning of the year, as I love to get organized and all planned up on my projects. So this organizer just helps to kind of keep everything together. Okay, so here's what you're going to need. So the patterns are linked below, so you can download them as a PDF form. So you're going to need your chosen fabric, a second fabric for the inside, binding, a magnet button closure, or you can use snap fasteners if you don't want to use a magnet. So you're going to also need a sew-in interlining as stiff as you can possibly get, but that still has a little bit of movement, iron-on batting, woven or non-woven fusible interfacing as well. So to start, you're going to lay out your pattern pieces for the main fabric. Then you're going to pin them in place and cut them out, but don't forget to mark in all your notches. So once they're done, lay out all the pattern pieces for the lining of the fabric and then pin them to the fabric and cut them out. So taking your sew-in interface, and you're going to want to cut it to the size of the organizer body, and then you're going to repeat this again for the iron-on batting. So before moving on, after you've cut the batting that you need, you're going to want to trim down each side by 1 centimeter, and this is just going to remove the seam allowance that has been added to the pattern. Okay, so next you're going to lay out the batting onto the body fabric, and then make sure that the back of the fabric is facing the textured glue side of the batting. You don't want to do it the opposite way around. And then before ironing, put a towel or a scrap of fabric on top, and this is just going to stop the batting from melting and sticking to the iron. So now you're going to lie all the interior pockets onto the woven interfacing, but make sure again that you have the back of the fabric is face down on the glue side of the interfacing, and again you're going to want to use an old scrap of fabric just to avoid the glue getting onto your iron, because trust me, it's a nightmare to get off. Okay, so now it's binding time. As you can see, I actually couldn't decide which I wanted, whether it was the black or the gold, but in the end I felt like the gold just kind of added a little bit more, so that's what I went for. Okay, so what you're going to do with the binding is you're going to actually add it to the top of the pockets that are going to be on the inside of the organizer. So to bind the fabric, you simply want to pin the edge of the binding to the edge of the fabric, and then use the fold line as on the binding as your sewing guide. So once that's sewn down, you want to trim off the excess fabric, and this will just lessen the bulk when you fold it over. So now once that's done, go ahead and fold over the binding to the other side of the fabric. I recommend pinning it down as it's just way easier to sew, and now you can start sewing along the binding edge. Okay, so taking the main body piece of fabric, you're going to sew that to the lining just along the top. So once that's done, you're going to start sewing on your pockets to the lining. I found that the easiest way to do it was to lay them out in the right order and then sew the pockets to each other before sewing them to the lining. So you'll notice that the pockets are not actually the same size, and the reason for that is I've added allowance to each pocket just to allow them to be filled without kind of buckling the front fabric. So to make it easier to sew, just try and pin them together as best you can, and then slowly feed it into the machine so that you don't get too much gathering. Okay, so on the bottom pocket you're going to need to make the little sleeves for your markers or your highlighters. So to do this, you're going to want to measure your highlighters first, and then just add a little bit of seam allowance just to kind of allow for them to be put into the pocket. So my complete measurements for each sleeve was 6.5 centimeters. I just marked this in with pins and then sewed the line straight down from the pins. Okay, so when you're finished, go ahead and test out the pockets with your highlighters just to make sure that they actually fit. Okay, so now you're going to have to sew these pockets to the final pocket. Okay, so now you're going to sew the left side pocket to the right side pockets. Now go ahead and place the pockets onto the lining and just line up the center seam with the notch on the lining and then pin them in place with some pins and go ahead and sew together using 1 centimeter seam allowance. Okay, so now just line up all the edges and sew them down by 0.5 centimeter seam allowance. Okay, so once all the edges are sewn down, you need to create your pen pocket. So simply just measure out the width that you desire and then insert the pins as your markers, and then now you're going to sew down from one pin to the other. So my measurements was actually 3 centimeters. So now that the inside of your organizer is complete, you're going to want to fold over the print so that the print is facing the pockets, and now you're going to sew 1 centimeter the whole way around, but leave one side open that you're going to put your magnet closure. Okay, so go ahead and trim around the edges. This is just going to stop you getting real bulky seams. So now turn the organizer the right way round and iron your edges flat. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the closure. So to start, you're going to want to sew the 2 pieces that you have together and leave that straight edge open. So taking your fabric scissors, you're going to want to cut into those rounded edges, and this is just going to make sure that you get really nice clean curves when you turn it through. So go ahead now and turn it through and just iron your seams flat. Now, so taking your interface, you're going to want to trim it down by 1 centimeter, and then you're going to insert it into the open end. So using some tailor's chalk and a measuring tape, just mark the halfway point along the open side of the organizer. Okay, so now we're going to pin the organizer to the closure. Just make sure that all the notches and the chalk marks line up together. So close over the organizer, and then you're going to mark a center point just underneath where the closure meets the front of the fabric. And this is just going to be where your magnet is going to be put in. So using the measuring tape and a chalk, again, you're going to mark a center point where your magnet teeth will be. So using the fabric scissors, you're going to cut into those marks that you're after making. Just be careful you don't go through both sides of the fabric. So now insert your magnet teeth and then add the other plate onto the other end and then fold over your teeth. So going back to the front of the organizer, just measure everything down again to make sure that it's halfway, and then mark in the teeth distance of the magnet. Again, using fabric scissors, you're going to cut into the mark points and then insert your magnet and close it over like you did previously. Okay, so to finish the closure, you're going to want to top stitch around the curve, but again, leave that open side alone. So go ahead and pin the closure to the organiser like you did before, but this time you're going to sew it down by 0.5 centimeters. So close over your organiser and make sure that the magnets meet up nicely. So like the closure, you're going to do a top stitch the whole way around the organiser, but don't go near the open side, you have to leave that as it is. So now taking your interface and you're going to trim down the edges until it fits nicely inside the organiser. So to finish the organiser, you're simply going to fold over the open side by 1 centimeter and pin it closed, and then you're going to continue your top stitch right across. So when that is your organiser finished, so all you need to do now is add your notebooks and your stationery. I really hope you enjoyed this sewing project. If you did, please hit that like button and share with your friends, and if you'd like to see more of my videos, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye guys!